I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which I live and work, the Yuwid and Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all First Nations, including Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who may be watching today's episode. You moved in together, you eloped, and that was all in 2 months.
Yeah, literally. It was a very big pivotal moment in my life because this is where I started to gain my voice more and speak up and everything like that, because a lot of responsibility ended up becoming onto me. I know I smile and stuff. It's just because I can only laugh about the situation now because it's yeah, that's massive, right?
Welcome to shtsfckedpodcast, the podcast that gets real about addiction, mental health, and everything in between. I'm Paris, and I spent 17 years battling the bottle, 10 years hooked on meth, and I also did a stint in the escorting world, which nearly cost me everything, including my life. I was lost, disconnected, and completely unrecognizable from who I once was. With both lived and professional experience, including qualifications in alcohol and other drugs, I'm here to share what I've learned along the way. Shtsfced isn't about offering the right way to recover. It's about showing that recovery is actually very personal. Every journey is unique, and this podcast brings you stories, insights, and practical tools to help you find what works for you. Now, just a disclaimer, we dive into some tough topics here, including addiction, all forms of abuse, trauma, mental illness, suicide, self-harm, and the realities of life in recovery. These discussions can be intense, so please take care while listening and just make sure you're in the right headspace too. Don't forget to follow or subscribe to the podcast. Your support actually helps us more than you know, and it's one of the best ways to keep these conversations going. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome, Tahlia Hasson. Thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I feel so blessed and grateful to have this opportunity, and we get to reconnect again and everything. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
Me too. So for our listeners out there, Tahlia and I actually went to high school together. It was a bit of a hole, a bit of a dive, but memories were made.
Yeah, that's for sure. Some kind of memories.
Character development, I think, was really, really in there.
Yeah, that's for sure. Oh my gosh.
Definitely. So yeah, we went to a pretty public school, a little bit rough around the edges. Tahlia and I actually weren't really friends in high school. We were in different circle groups. I mean, you were telling me you thought I was in the cool group, which I was like, I don't even understand that. I didn't have that perspective at all. I was like, I'm my own little fucking weirdo. I did not consider myself cool at all.
Oh my God. No, you were definitely so cool with a bunch of other people. And I was like, oh my God, I'd love to be her friend.
Why weren't we friends? I honestly don't know. There's so many times I've reconnected with people outside of high school that I wasn't mates with during. And I'm like, fuck, man, we actually had so much in common. Why were we so segregated? Why didn't we hang out? It's funny because I was so fucked up during that time. So it's interesting to hear people being like, oh, I'd like to I'd like to hang out with her. She seems she's got it all good. I was getting drunk every day at school. I started doing drugs. Yeah, it was definitely an interesting time. So for our listeners out there as well today, how would you kind of describe who you are, what you're up to? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Alrighty, cool. Yeah, so hey everybody. So pretty much how I describe myself is I am someone who's in the online space as well. And I am pretty much a motivational speaker is how I list myself. Me as a person, I'm very bubbly and outgoing, and just I get a lot of people in my DMs that go, oh, you put all that on. And I'm like, you know what? It would actually be a lot of work to be me. It would actually be so painful if this was a facade all the time.
I can't believe people actually say that to you. It's a facade.
Yeah,
Wow.
literally. They're just like, you just put it on for because you're always on the camera or you're always doing this. And it's like, yeah, it takes a lot of guts to be online and to showcase everything and really put yourself out there all the time. Yeah, I get a lot of people, they're literally just like, oh, you just put it on because you're recording or whatever. And everyone has that perception. And I'm like, a lot of the time you have no idea how much is actually cut out of that, that content to create a reel, yes,
Yeah.
like I'm dancing or doing whatever it is. But a lot of that is actually genuine connection and genuine moment. So yeah, everyone's perception is so funny. They go, oh yeah, you just put it on for show. And I'm like, you know what? It would actually be so exhausting that, for the past 3 years, you would have definitely found out if I was horrible. Like, if I wasn't this person, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's
Yes.
so
Yeah.
wild. So yeah, I kind of list myself as like a motivational speaker because I speak on all things mindset. I've gone through like such a crazy journey in such a short amount of time that I really speak on a lot of things as well and go deep in that. So yeah, that's pretty much how I describe myself. Really, I'm sort of like a content creation. Content creator. I'm a content creation.
I got you.
Oh,
Oh, that's
but
so
you know what
funny.
I mean.
Yes, I know what you mean. And you're also the host of a podcast, Becoming Invincible, which you left out.
Yes. Oh, yes. So sorry. Yes. So that is my main brand. Like, oh my gosh, that's right. That's how you guys will all know me. Yes. Oh my gosh. Sorry. But that's
You're
me.
like,
This is me. How exhausting would this be if this was fake, right? Like, honestly.
oh man, the amount of trolls out there online though. Like, I used to actually get it pretty bad. Now I think people have backed the fuck off. I think just the more that I've been in the space. But yeah, I used to get some real sad people just really trying to give me their opinions and their, 2 cents, which I one didn't ask for and two didn't give a fuck about. So it's one of those things, I don't even open a lot of the messages if I see that there's any kind of opinion or something about what I'm doing. I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Like, I can't be bothered.
I can't even imagine for you. Like, for me, it's like mindset and like, it's from like an experience and you're sharing from your experience, but obviously a lot of people would have a lot of opinion, be like, oh my God. Because I remember you shared something and was like, and someone was hating on the person that, excuse me, recovery isn't if you relapse or something. And I was like, oh my God, you have no idea. This is uneducation, everybody. Like, honestly, I was so like, everyone is very uneducated with things like that. And I was like, okay.
Definitely. Definitely. Honest to God, the amount of comments I've had to fucking delete because look, I'm all for like freedom of speech and, having your opinion. But because of the type of space this is, like, mental health and addiction, recovery, if I think what someone is saying could cause harm to someone in that space, I will yeet it. It's not so much like because I care about what you've said. It's like this could actually cause harm. And I just don't want that happening in my space. So, yeah, I have culled so many comments. So many.
My God, I love that actually because it's so funny you said that because I recently talked on my Instagram about how people do business a little bit. Now, I'm not like someone who's like, crazy in business or anything like that, but it's more just like that's like shows your heart. You know what I mean? And I feel like business is hard. And a lot of the time people don't understand that. And it's wild. Hey.
Yeah,
So I love that.
absolutely. Yeah. Oh, well, I'm so excited to get into this chat. I mean, you just mentioned before as well that you kind of went through a lot of stuff all at once, which was a wild story. Let me tell you, when I first heard it, I was like, what the fuck?
I know. I should have actually been like Kim K and just had a cameraman following me around the whole time. I swear to God.
Oh my gosh, so wild. Because I think we'll focus on that time period and everything that you went through because like you have a really fucking wild story. So for our listeners out there, Tahlia had, a very unfortunate encounter of a con man. So it was just a really, really, really wild story. There's a lot of layers to it, so we'll definitely dive on in. You also had a bit of a tragedy as well before this kind of happened. So why don't we actually even start there and kind of lead into like how you met this guy and what the fuck unraveled after that. So I'm gonna pass it over to you.
All right, everybody, buckle up. No.
I'm strapping in, seatbelt on.
We're about to go for a ride. All right. So it was December 2019 that I had a really big life-changing pivotal moment, and that was losing my dad. And he was very suddenly, like very suddenly. He wasn't meant to go because at that time I was preparing for my uncle to be going, all on my dad's side of the family, and because he had cancer. So it was all leading up and everything like that. And my dad was really in with helping him and setting up all his affairs in order and everything like that. So he was the last to think that he would go. So yeah, when he was setting all that affairs in order and everything like that, and I was in a 6-year relationship. So I was with somebody at this time. And we went to Scotland and I had a nice family holiday with his family. And then when I came back, that's when things started to sort of decline a little bit, because when we came back, that would have been August 2019. It was until December. So yeah, it was only a few months after that I didn't really see my dad too much, because obviously he was helping my uncle. But there was a sense, like at that time, obviously I can talk in hindsight now, but I did feel and think at this time that there was something just not right happening. Like, you know how you just sort of get like for a woman, you kind of get like an intuitive feeling of something happening, and you're just like, yeah, there's something else going on around at the moment. And because he just was very loose in his messaging, and then we didn't really see each other as much in this time. So it would have been September, and then December is when like he was classed, deceased. So basically what happened was I got a call from my nana. So I would work probably like until 6 o'clock at night, and then by the time I get home, probably about 7:30, because I would catch a train and a bus. Anyway, so I got home, so it was late at night, and my nana called me, and I was like, "Oh my god, hey, how you going?" And she, it wasn't my nana, it was my auntie, and I was like, "Oh," and she goes, "Yeah, I've just got some news to tell you," and I was like, "Okay," and she told me that my dad had passed away, and I was like, "What?" And obviously, in this moment when you're trying to understand someone's actually been gone, your brain has no understanding of it, obviously, right? So you're completely like, what is going on? You're sort of in a little bit of shock as well. So anyone who's obviously lost anybody, which I'm sure like we've all had some sort of a loss, I do believe, in our life, I feel like we can all relate with this, where you just have no sense of it. You're just like, what has actually happened? Can you even believe it? Like, there's so many things going on. I was definitely in disbelief. I was just like, that's impossible. Like, no, I literally just saw him. So what are you talking about? He's dead. I was trying to like piece it all together, because on like Saturday, like that time, we actually went out for my brother's birthday, because my brother has his birthday on the beginning of December. And we went out for this dinner, and I felt like there was something off about him then, because he didn't look that well and he was late. And there was just so many things that sort of came into this time. He did this thing where, because it was Christmas time, my mum has Christmas lights. Everyone in her street like does Christmas lights. So instead of going the normal way to exit out of the block, he went the opposite way. And it wasn't until like it was weird, because you can go out either way, but it was just really odd that he would never do that way. So he randomly went that way. I was like, why is he going that way? I said to my partner, because we're all leaving, and he's like, I don't know, that's really strange. I'm like, okay. And then because when I found out he had passed, I was like, I felt like he knew it was coming, because they do say a lot of the time people already know if they're on their way out. And going that way, I feel like he wanted to have one last look or something. Like it was that sort of moment. And so finding that, it was like, oh my God, what the hell? So I went into fight and flight mode. So I went into absolute fight mode. And I did not know this existed, because who I was as a person at this time for everybody, I am a recovering people pleaser, and I don't really like to subscribe as much to one anymore because I am trying so hard to not, do that. And I know for everyone can relate in that. I feel like we all have some sort of trait. And so at this time, I didn't really have a voice. I'm not who I am, like who you're listening and seeing right now. I was very different. Yeah. So I went into fight mode. I was like, yep, okay, let's do this. And I was like, okay, as soon as I got off the phone, I went to my partner. I was like, we need to go to my mom's house right now because she's going to get home from work because at that time she worked at night and she was going to be home at like 8:30 or whatever. So I'm like, we need to get to my mom's house. I want to make sure she's okay. My brother's okay. And my partner literally just honestly went into freeze. He just bawled his eyes out and was like, how are you not crying? And I was like, I don't know, but we need to go. Like, I just went into like, we just need to go there.
Like, I don't have time for this. Like,
yeah, I was like, get fucking dressed and we're going. Yeah, it was really odd because he was always the, the man in the relationship, like everything. It was a little bit of a controlling relationship and I don't hold over him, but he was always the doer and like, oh, we're going to do this. And I was like along for the ride. That was the person that I was. And even like through school as well, like I was such a doormat, and that's not shame on me. That's just honesty. And it was really odd that this like made me kind of, I don't know, level up or something. Like I was just like, we need to do this. So we went and made sure that my mum and my brother, because my brother was living at home at that time, were all okay, and they were. And we just were in such disbelief with it, like, how could this even happen? And this was like a big turning point for me because this is when a lot of, which everyone can understand, a lot of family drama happens when people go, unfortunately. People think they're more entitled to what they're worth. My mum's first words to me, and this is not shame on her, this is how she dealt with it. She was just like, you should have got married already, because we had a long engagement. And I just chose 2020 for some reason because I just was like, that feels right. And that was a 4-year engagement from when I got engaged, like proposed to. And I don't know what it was about 2020. I just was like, that year just speaks to me. And clearly we can all relate. 2020 was quite a year.
Oh, yeah. Lord knows. You wouldn't have been able to get married really in 2020 with the COVID restrictions.
Exactly. So it all like is, I really believe in that divine timing and stuff. So yeah, it was really weird that I just chose 2020 and we wanted, I don't know, just did a long engagement. And so my mom was like, you should have got married already because he would have been there. And I was like, okay, you're obviously
that's so rough, man.
I know, yes. I was like, that's okay. You're totally hurting. That's okay. I just didn't really say anything because I was just like, well, how am I meant to know that my dad is literally just going to die? Like,
Of
you know what I
course,
mean?
you don't predict that shit.
Yeah. So I was just like, okay. It was just really like a really hard time, obviously. And then I went to his parents' house that same night. And I wanted to say this on the podcast because this has really helped me. And if this could help anyone sort of reframe their mind, and this is what I'm all about, is reframing our minds, even though it's like a loss is a loss no matter what, and you'll never get over it. So I'm very well aware, and that's like my life. But there's something that his dad actually told me that night that I was like, I love this. So my partner's dad at the time, he said to me, he was like, Tahlia, you're never going to get over the fact that your dad is gone. You're just going to learn to live with it. He's like, you just get used to living without them, but it won't change the fact, obviously, and it will still hurt no matter the years that go on, because he lost his dad 1 year, then his mum the next year. Like, so they were a year apart. And he was like, it's what I've learned with death and stuff. So I was like, oh my gosh. And that really helped me. Like, maybe not in that moment, obviously, because, I hadn't cried yet. I was so in shock. And I want everyone to understand that that's okay as well. Like, you don't need to break down and cry, and you don't need to hate yourself for not crying and think, because it all comes to us so differently, right? So I did not cry for a while because I was just so like, this isn't happening. Like, I just went into like denial, And so, yeah, I saw his parents and that. And then I did start to cry with his parents a little bit more as like his dad was talking to me, because he really came from someone who really understood. But yeah, it was a very big pivotal moment in my life because I felt I had this is where I started to gain my voice more and speak up and everything like that, because a lot of responsibility ended up becoming onto me. And I have an older brother, like my brother's older than me. And so he didn't really like step up as such when being asked when we were trying to organize the funeral and everything like that. And it was so hard because obviously coming up to Christmas and everything, and it was
Oh,
just
of
so,
course. I didn't even think about that.
yeah, so it's the start of December. So yeah, it was wild. So trying to like work out when to do the funeral to, in this holiday period and everything. And yeah, everyone just kind of looked to me and was like, they asked my brother, was like, oh, what should we do? And he was like, I don't know. He just was really like, I can't deal with this. And so they were like, okay, Tali, what do you think? And I was like, okay. So I then went into like the mode of like, we've got to sort this out. So I completely suppressed all my emotion. I was like, okay, yeah, we got to pull our like socks up and do this. Like I just went into, okay, we're going to suppress my feelings because they're not valid as such. And we're just going to plan this funeral, because at the same time, I do feel like you don't get time to grieve, because you've then got to organize this funeral, then you've got to organize the next thing and the next thing. And it's just so much that you don't even have time to really even feel your emotions. So, yeah, if anyone's ever dealt with that situation, you're not alone, because that is like the norm.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for sharing that. And grief, like it's such a tricky beast because as you said as well, like it shows up differently for everyone. So it sounds like your brother kind of even went into shutdown, whereas you just like took off, like, just completely polar reactions.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
but it's
so weird.
wild. It is, and it's difficult. It's difficult. I even find for myself, like whenever I experience like a death of a loved one, I don't know. I tend to sometimes I'll cry a little bit at the start, but then I kind of go into it's hard to make that concept of it. Is this real? Like, has this actually happened? Like the shock, like as you mentioned, taking over, and just now trying to accept that as reality, it's like that's really tough. But whenever I get to the funeral, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this is actually happening. So
Yeah.
that's usually when that's when I usually start to process it. It's not really so much before, but yeah, usually at the funeral, I'm like, oh shit, yeah, okay, this is happening. Oh my goodness. So during this time, it's obviously super fucking chaotic. There's a lot going on. You're trying to sort out all your stuff with your dad. What was happening within your 6-year relationship? Like, how was that getting impacted by everything that was going on? I mean, you were now being someone that your partner wasn't used to seeing, you are now taking charge, taking control. How did that impact things?
So for me, this is like the turning point to my life to now. And this is, I always believe that if my dad was meant to go, and you can only ever come to this realization after time, okay? But I really believe his time was gone because I needed to be the person that I am today. And that's so spiritual and so kind of foreign probably, but honestly, like it just makes total sense, because I really wouldn't be like having my own podcast, not even on this podcast, and, having the journey I've had today without this whole pivotal moment, right? So that's what I really believe. And so what was happening in my relationship? Yeah. So I became a lot more snappy. I was very much like I would pick fights a lot. Like I'm very honest in my growth, right? So at this point, because obviously I suppressed a lot, I had to, know what to do all the time. Be like, hey, Tahlia, how should we divide up his assets? And like, we got to sell his house, like, and then it was so many other things because my dad, just to get a little bit of a story, he passed away in his house. So we had to clean it and we had to like do it up and sell it. It was like a whole thing, a very big project. He didn't have a will either, so that made things a lot more harder. So all that pressure and that. And so my partner was very supportive at the start, obviously. Like he was like, you know what, it's okay. Like I'm here for you. And then I went to work straight away because that's generalized what's happened, like what happens, you don't really get time. And so, because it was deemed in like the holiday period. So my 2 weeks of grieving was not really 2 weeks because everyone had that off because it was like a holiday period. But because I was a barber at this time, you don't actually get the holiday period off really. Like you work through,
Yeah,
obviously.
of
So
course.
Yeah, so I didn't have to work through, which was great. But then I came back in the new year, probably like the second week of January. Anyway, so this is now January 2020, and yeah, there was, because I went to work and came home, he would say a lot of bad stuff because in his mind he thinks, oh, she's over it. She's back at work now. She's all good. Like, he's just not registering. I don't really know what clicked. It could have been his emotions, how he was expressing and dealing with it as well. Obviously, I talk in hindsight, but it was very intense. So it was a very pivotal moment where I found out we weren't growing together because it made me reflect on our trip in Scotland. We weren't agreeing on certain things, and that sort of really tells you a lot as well. Anyway, and then so it became really like, for a woman's sake, like unsafe in the sense of like there was no like loving care in my relationship. So behind closed doors, it was always like fighting. He even actually said to me, which is one of the things, I won't say them all obviously, but one of the things he said to me is that when you come home from work, just go upstairs and have a cry, because we built a townhouse. So he's like, just go upstairs, have a cry, let it out, and then come back down. You can make dinner.
Oh my
And
God.
Yeah,
that is rich.
Yeah, like it was. When I heard that, I was like, "Do you think I'm just fucking over it? Like you're with me and seeing what's happened." And that was the hardest thing, is that he sat there next to me in like planning the funeral, having all the experiences and how my family was, because everyone was dealing their own stuff, and to how the funeral went about, to all the drama after. And so it was really hard for me to be like, and all you can say is like, oh yeah, once you have a cry, because you've been at work all day, you can come back, like come downstairs and make my dinner. I was like, how dare you? I'm not your fucking maid. And so it really, like, that was the last kind of straw that broke the camel's back sort of thing. And I was just like, you know what, fuck this, I'm done. I don't want to be with you anymore, because how dare you say that? Because he was close to my dad. They would, stay up late because I would see my dad every fortnight. They'd have drinks, and I'm like, okay, well, I got to work because I work on the weekend. And so it'd be like a Sunday I'd have to work, and I'm like, okay, well, good night, guys. I'm just going to go to bed. And they would just stay up drinking. And he had this full relationship with my dad, and it was really hard, where he just did not give a shit, it felt like. I was like, what the hell? So then I started being quite catty and being like, fuck you, and slamming doors. And I sort of released a lot of my rage and my emotion out on him, which isn't obviously a good idea, but it's kind of understandable. But I'm very honest in my
still processing now. that grief though. Like, that's the way that it shows up.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, it was very rocky. It was just not congruent at all. Like, I just didn't want to. Yeah, after he said that to me, it was pretty much like, that's it, I'm done. Like, I just can't do this anymore. Like, this is just not fair. And you sort of have a different outlook on life when you lose somebody as well, or, whatever pivotal moment it is for you. I feel like your mindset gets shifted massively. You just think so differently. You don't think the same way. And yeah, I just wasn't wanting to be in that relationship anymore.
Wow. So gosh, it sounds like it's been a huge like ripple effect, so everything that kind of went down with your dad, and then how it showed up in your relationship. But I do believe as well in divine timing, and that things happen for a reason. So we'll get into the next part of this story, which is where things really start to kick off for you, if they haven't already. So I know from what we've talked about previously that you mentioned you met someone in Feb 2020. Is that right? Feb 2020? Yeah. And that was at the same barber place that you were still working at?
Yeah, so I met him. So this is where it all comes into turmoil. So everybody, here we go. So my relationship was already breaking down already, right? No excuse, but that's just what was happening. And then it was February 2020 is when I met my children's biological father / I call him the sperm donor. He was a client at a salon. Nothing happened, but that's when he came into my life. I was still with my 6-year relationship until mid-March 2020. That's when I officially ended it and we broke up, okay?
Yeah.
So
got it.
Meeting sperm donor, just a client. Now, he would get a head shave and a face shave. Now, for those of you that obviously don't know, that is a weekly service that you get done at a barber. Okay. And so that's what he would have done. So I'd see him every week. So from the start of February, like all of February, I'd see him every week. And for some reason, there was just, I don't know, there was, again, I believe everything happens for a reason too. Like I even have that tattooed on me.
Beautiful.
Anyway. But there was just something about him that I just was like I was actually afraid of him at first. I was like, oh God, who's that person? He better not be for me. And then I found out, I had to do his service. And I was like, oh God, because he had a black eye and everything. And I was like, oh shit.
Oh, red flags already.
Yeah, you just wait. So it was wild. I was like, oh gosh. And then did his service for the first time. Then he came back and he requested me again. And I was like, oh shit, here we go. So I got to know him obviously on a client basis, but there was just something about him. I don't know what it was. There was just something that I was like, oh, yeah, no, he seems pretty cool or whatever it was. And I just was starting to look, obviously the grass is greener, because obviously when things are happening bad in your relationship, you sort of do that. Like, oh, is the grass greener elsewhere? And the more I got to know him, the more I just really didn't want to be in my 6-year relationship. Around this time now, COVID was happening, obviously. We knew COVID was the thing, and then now it's happening because we had the bushfires and then COVID, and then we were going to lockdown. So this was the period where everything was starting to lock down. Everyone was getting really fearful. It was a really crazy time. And we weren't sure if the salon was going to make it, the one that I was at, and because they were a small business. And so we were packing up the salon. They decided to, we'll just close and then we'll just reopen when everything, settles out, because we don't know how we're going to go. And so, and obviously we had to with restrictions because, contact. Anyway, and so we're closing the salon down, and I emailed the sperm donor because we have everyone's records in the system. And I was like, oh, just letting you know the salon's shutting down. If you wanted to come in, like today's your last day sort of thing, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he couldn't make it, but he then messaged me, said, hey, like, I don't know if you have had any relationships, blah, blah. And then that's when it started to get personal. So he was like, I don't know if you're in a relationship or anything, but I'm keen to catch up for a coffee or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so I said to him, I was like, well, I'm in a relationship, but it's not looking good. But yeah, that would be nice. Is basically what I said.
You cheeky bugger.
I was honest in that, right? So yeah, I knew what I was doing. Obviously, I was like, I'm crossing boundaries. And then then the salon shut, and then we had to clean this coming because it's in the city, so we had to go clean it. Now, sperm donor was in South Perth at this time, and so I then went and saw him after we cleaned the salon. And I made a day out of it because I wasn't going to go in all the way into the city for just a few hours. Like I was just like, I will just kill two birds, one stone, because my thought process in this, and I know I talk in hindsight, but this actually was my thought process, is literally I want to make sure it's not like because he's all shiny, that sort of thing. Like I was like,
yes.
Is this actually real? Or is it, or is it that whole human thing of like, oh, it's my client? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's
the
like
forbidden fruit.
Like, it's like a bartender. Like, are you actually into the bartender, or is it because he's a bartender and you can like, it's all naughty and that whole thing? So I was like, is it something like that? And so I went and met him after. Nothing happened. Obviously, I was respectful to my partner in the sense that I would obviously never do anything, but I was disrespectful because I still messaged someone behind his back, right? Very honest in my growth. Like, that's just point blank. And so when I met him, nothing happened, but we talked, and we lost track of time. And I was like, okay, shit, maybe there is something there. Now, he was significantly older than me, so it was kind of interesting to find a common ground. But there was just something there. Obviously, I had a lot of suppressed emotion, hadn't even grieved yet. Like, this is like continuing on the suppression. Like, it's just like, oh, someone thinks I'm beautiful or thinks I'm this, because my own partner doesn't even think that. Like, he's not voicing that. It's just chaotic. Like, you know what I mean? So you think, oh, someone's paying attention to me, blah, blah, blah. Strokes the ego. So I thought there was better elsewhere. Anyway, so that's what happened. And then I went home and I ended it that night with my partner. I was like, I'm good. That's it,
Wow.
And,
so you ended it the same day. Oh, I didn't know that.
So that's when I was like, okay, this is more like, okay, better end it sort of thing. I will say it's actually really hard, like, because I've been both. Obviously, I've broken up with people and I've had people break up with me. But unfortunately for me, it's literally everyone cheated on me. My whole relationships, that's my past. Like, except for my 6-year relationship, everyone's just cheated on me. And obviously, I'm in a relationship now, and he hasn't yet. And I'm getting, or never will, but you know what I mean. So yeah, like I've had that history that's how my relationships have ended. People just cheat on me. So I was like, I'm not going to do anything, like, because I know what that feels like. But when you're breaking up with someone, it still hurts because you're looking at someone in the eye and you actually can see their heart break and you just feel for them. And you're just like, oh my God. And because it wasn't his fault, we just weren't growing together. And I could just see myself as someone else. And I just was like, because I just feel like he was just there. And yeah, the whole validation and stuff. I was just like, oh, it's an easier kind of option, right? Anyway, and so yeah, really, it was really intense. Like, we were up all night because you're watching someone's heartbreak from crying, then being like, fuck you. And because I was so honest, I was like, there is someone else, nothing's happened. But obviously speaking to someone else, I am still in the wrong. And I'm very honest about owning my stuff. Like, and that's a really a big trait for me because I own so much. I struggle when people can't own theirs. Like, that's a massive thing for me. And so I was telling him, I was like, look, nothing's happened, but yes, there is somebody else. Like, you don't love me anymore. And COVID's happening, right? And we're all about to get locked down in our house. Now, he wanted to go to his parents' house and I wanted to go to my mum's. We didn't want to be stranded in the same house. And that speaks volumes for your relationship because you should want to be with your significant other, especially when we're meant to be getting married. Yeah, I was basically numb at this point, right? I felt for him, was like, I'm so sorry. But I was still suppressed from my dad and everything happening. This was like when pivotal moments happen, you kind of do crazy stuff, I guess. Like some people, so some people would probably take up drinking or like they'll do drugs or something like that. And that's no shame or anything, obviously. But we all deal with our emotions so differently. How I dealt with it was obviously moving on to the next in a relationship and ending one, that kind of thing, right? Because I do get a lot of judgment from it where it's like, oh, and I'm like, okay, well, if I had have taken up drinking instead, would that be a lot more better? Like, you know what I mean? It's just all so different.
Yeah.
Like in that, not shaming drinking because obviously this podcast and everything, it's just like when we put it in a different perspective, it's like, okay, well, should I have done that?
Our guest speaker, Caroline Broome, is a trauma survivor coach and breathwork facilitator based on the Gold Coast and supports her clients to regulate their nervous system, get in touch with their mind, body, and spirit, and work through their trauma using coaching and the somatic power of breathwork. With her trained therapy dog, Louie, Caroline holds in-person breathwork sessions on the Gold Coast for groups and individuals and online sessions for those who aren't based on the Gold Coast. So if you're someone who's wanted to give breathwork a go but hasn't really known where to start, Caroline might be the person to support you. With monthly online sessions and various in-person sessions available, it's time to experience the power of breathwork. So just head to www.carolinebroome.com and check out the breathwork page to book a session today.
Let's go.
Get in, girl. So listeners will probably see that Tahlia's changed environment. We had a few tech issues, so now she's moved to another section of the house and we are kicking off again.
Now, because we decided to end it, he was still working and I wasn't. And so I then he went to work and did his day the next day. And then whilst he was at work, I then packed most of my stuff that I had together in the house, just everything I could load the car up with. And so I did that. And then I waited for him to come home because in my past experiences, for me, there's a childhood thing there where my family is from farming. And so how my mum left my dad is that he went away for harvesting. Now, those that don't know harvesting, it's obviously you're out on the field and everything like that. And so you're there all day. He went from 4:30 in the morning and probably got home at 7 or 6. And so by the time he went out to then coming back, she was gone. Like, me and my brother and my mum were all gone, and she went to Perth, and she left my dad up on the farm and didn't tell him. And so I knew I didn't want to make the same, not mistake, but the same choice. So I waited for him to finish work, and then I said, yeah, no, we're actually officially done. And then I went to my mum's, and so there wasn't any, like, he would come home to an empty house. There was none of that. And then I put my engagement ring on the counter because that's what he wanted. And that was pretty much it. Everything else was via email because then we were selling the house. And so pretty much went back to my mum's house for a whole month to really kind of get my head straight as best as I can at that point. Again, I'm not who I am like I am today. And so I was like, getting rid of things, selling things, just sort of like decluttering my life. But then I was obviously still talking to the sperm donor at this point, but we weren't really, like, there was nothing really happening because I was trying to, like, sort myself out. And then so that was probably for a week. And then I started, like, dating the sperm donor, just seeing, what was happening, whilst trying to manage, like, what was going on with my dad's house and then my house that was starting to come up, because he reached out to a realtor and wanted to get it, like, going and to sell it. So all those things in the background were happening. I was getting to know this new person and everything was great. He love bombed me. I didn't even know what love bombing was at that time. So I very much, and also I didn't know what trauma bonding was either. So those of you that probably don't even know is like, what the hell are you even talking about? So trauma bonding is where you basically seek a lot of validation and you latch onto someone, like, pretty much like easy terms, to someone because you have so much emotional dysregulation. And so you're basically latching onto someone, thinking that they can fulfill such a big need into you. And so what happens is generally the other person will then love bomb you. And that's how, like, an emotional attachment can do, because you think, oh my God, this is the love of my life and this is what happens. And I felt such a feeling of anxiety and, like, butterflies and the spark, because that's what Disney makes you believe. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like, this is how it's meant to feel. And so I was on this, like, bet, like this, all these, endorphins and everything, being like, oh my God, this is the love of my life. This is, like, amazing. Like, I'm so glad I got out my 6-year relationship because I found my person, is what I was believing. And he obviously helped with that because he was like, oh yeah, like, blah, blah, blah. That obviously, it was great at the start, everything sort of happened. I even said to him, because I was so with it, that I was like, yeah, I'll want to have, like, children and everything like that. Whereas with my 6-year relationship, I didn't want to have children with him. I just knew, I probably subconsciously knew, or, like, intuitively knew what kind of life we would have. And I always saw divorce in our future as well. Like, I never really believed that we would actually make it through. I would always see that we would actually end in divorce. And so, with the sperm donor, I was like, yeah, let's have children and blah, blah, blah. So, then it kind of took, like, a really big toll, because then I was pregnant with Scarlett pretty quickly. We then decided to get married and elope, because he just was like, yeah, let's get married. And I was like, yeah, why not? And so.
And can you tell the listeners just, like, how many months this has been, by the way? Like, how long you've been talking?
Oh, yeah. So this is such a whirlwind, everybody, that literally this was in a space of, like, 2 months.
Yeah, because you moved in. This was happening. You moved in together, you eloped, and that was all in 2 months.
Yeah, literally. So, because when, like I said, like, I broke up with my 6-year relationship, went to my mum's for a month, because it was a month.
Yeah.
Because it was actually the start of April that I moved in with sperm donor. May. That's right. Sorry, start of May, because I had all of April at my mum's house, but I was still seeing sperm donor. Obviously, like, I'd go stay. I'd go here and there, sort of thing. Yeah. And then I actually officially moved in with him in May, the start of May. And then that's when it all escalated, because, I was early pregnant with Scarlett. And then, we planned to elope up in Broome, like, when the borders would open. So, it was, like, a really crazy time. And also in this time, I was selling my dad's house, family drama, and trying to sell my house, at the same time.
So much going on. So, like, how was your family and your friends, like, reacting to this? Because, I mean, like, you suddenly ending this 6-year relationship, you've met this other guy, you moved in with him, you're pregnant, you've eloped. What were they thinking? Like, what, did they say anything to you?
Literally. Oh God. So many things. So, which is really unfortunate. So I robbed my mum from that experience. Like, she still hasn't gotten over that, which I totally understand. And my friends weren't really around. So when I ended my 6-year relationship, I had some friends that would actually be friends with him. Like, so they took his side and was like, fuck you, Tahlia, you're obviously going through some midlife crisis or something. Anyway, so I was in my 20s, so it wasn't a midlife crisis, right? So
Quarter life crisis.
I think that's what I was trying to mean, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, you're 26 years old, you have this pivotal moment happening, and you're just sort of like following through. So I really believe that obviously suppressing all those emotions made me do very irrational things on the outside, right? It was my emotions, like that was showcasing my emotions, right? When we can think about it like that, you're, oh my God, you're selling 2 houses, family drama because everyone wants all the money. And then it was like I hardly any had friends in that point. So when I ended it, some of them took his side, was like, F you, don't know what's wrong with you, what you're doing. Because everyone's so used to you in that relationship. You're in there for 6 years, right? And you had built a life together and everything like that. And so I had some people like that. Other people actually didn't become my friend anymore when I lost my dad. They weren't really there for me and they didn't really care to be there for me. So I lost them. And then I had people that weren't even sure, because when I broke up with my 6-year relationship, he spread a lot of rumors about how I really cheated on him and I hurt him, and like a lot of really nasty stuff. So when I would go back to the barbers, like all of the people were just like, oh, did this actually happen to you? And I was like, no, like what the hell? And it was just a lot of things that people were trying to believe. And so, yeah, it was really hard to, like, no one was really around. Like, everyone was trying to grasp it. Like, how have you come out of one and you've gone into another? So I was very thankful that handful of friends that really were like, well, I don't really believe this. I believe her. She's been my friend for, X amount of years. Yeah, they were just like trying to grasp and put their heads together. And so my mum didn't even know at this point until after the elopement. So obviously everyone really found out after and was like, holy shit, you just met this person.
Yeah. So you did all of that without anyone knowing, and you came back from Broome. And did you like sit down with them and you're like, guys, like just letting you know, or like how did you approach that?
Yeah, I told everyone individually. So I told my mum first, obviously, as soon as when we came back, I was like, yep, it's going to be so exciting. And I told her, and she was like, she just was so stunned with it. She was like, what? And she just didn't really register at that time. She's like, okay. And she didn't want to say congratulations. She was just like, oh, okay, cool. Because obviously I took that moment away from her from being there at like the wedding and everything like that, even though no one came. But, that whole experience, she felt really robbed from that.
Yeah.
And especially she had her own emotions at this time. And we weren't close at this time either because, again, she had her own stuff going on with losing my dad. They weren't together or anything, but they did have like a friendship. It's kind of like a confusing situation, but yeah. But still impactful, yeah. So everyone was just dealing with it in their own way. And I just told all my friends individually, and they just were like, what the hell is going on? And I guess they were just like, okay, well, we're just going to be there for you because like what's done is done sort of thing. And no one ever said that. They were just like, oh, this is exciting. But it was just still very like, oh, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, like a level of concern, like essentially.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I know, like, even if just hearing this story, I'm just thinking, like, if this was one of my mates, I would be like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Like, what the hell?
What's going on? This is very concerning behavior. Like, yeah, I'd be so concerned. That would be my immediate reaction. But then it's like, you're going through so much as well. So like, you're kind of trying to be mindful of that. You've had such a huge life transition, like losing your dad, and obviously you're still dealing with that grief. And so, yeah, like I think I would definitely be like, gosh, like she's obviously going through the ringer. Like, do we need to like rescue her? Like, what do we do?
Like, oh my gosh, right now, yeah.
Yeah, that would be so tough. So from there, like after you guys eloped and you're married how was the relationship then? Because it was all moving so quickly. You know, how were things progressing with you guys?
Great. Like everything was perfect. Couldn't get any more perfect between me and him as the relationship.
Like still love
Because
bombing?
again, yep, still love bombing. There was a few things that obviously reflecting back now that I was like, oh, that's total red flag. Like, how did I even miss that? Which is one of the things was because with pregnancy, obviously your emotions don't become your own. You do have a lot more. And it's not like any excuse or anything, but we would go to a local coffee shop and get our coffee. And I always thought there was this woman there that would make the coffee, and she was like really attractive and stuff. And so I said to him, I was like, look, she's flirting with you. Because she was point blank flirting in front of me. And I'm just like, you have no idea I'm pregnant right now. Because when you're in your first trimester, you don't really show. And I'm just like watching her being like, what the fuck? And then he was like, he wasn't really giving into it, but he wasn't really stopping it. And I was like, well, I just feel like you're just going to go run off with her. And he goes, be careful what you say because it might just happen.
Oh.
And I just, did it. It just went over my head then. And I was like, okay. And so I was like, okay, what the hell? Yeah. So I didn't really take much note to it, but I guess it's because it's like, yeah, you can't really go into those sort of insecurities too much, right? But that is definitely something you don't say. But
no, definitely not.
Yeah, especially he knew everything going on as well. So from this point, from like coming back, everything was great. Everyone was like happy for us. Everyone came to the baby shower. Everyone sort of came around, was like, okay, this is Tahlia's life now, being there for me. And it was like all great. And in this time, like a lot of my other friends were having pivotal moments too, like whether they were having babies or they were getting married themselves. Like, so this was like the time where everyone was sort of, you know, setting off into those own, like their own lives.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, everyone came to the baby shower. It was great. And then had Scarlett in December 2020. And then so I had her in January 21, sorry. So the baby shower was December 2020. And he was there for that and it was great. And then this is where everything starts to go now, which is, so it was February 21 and he decides to go over to Melbourne because he had this court case that was pending in the background. I knew about it leading up to February, but I didn't really ask about it because he's like, oh, it's just, you know, loose ends I need to tie up. It's for work. Like someone's suing me. It's just a big ordeal because he owned his own company and he made me believe that. He made me believe a lot of things, like he was an entrepreneur and everything like that. So he made me believe a lot of lies. He fabricated this whole life, and that's a very obviously big manipulation. And everything that was going on, he was painting the picture of a financially freedom lifestyle. And I was like, oh my God, I never knew entrepreneurship or online space before this time. I wasn't a big YouTube watcher. It was, so I had no idea, right? And this is why everything is so divine, because obviously I got immersed into a lot of, online and entrepreneur, like, oh, okay, this is like a lifestyle that people have. And so he went over to Melbourne in February 21. And he was there for 4 months. So he didn't get back until like June 21. And in this time, I was, first time mum in this apartment, 1-bedroom apartment in South Perth alone. And it wasn't even sure if I was going to be alone for 4 months. It was just so sketchy. Like the communication was shit. He just didn't have
so he didn't say like, hey, I'm going to Melbourne for X amount of time. It was just like, I've got to go over here because there's this sketchy ass court case I got to attend. And you just didn't know. Like you didn't know the time frame. Okay. All right.
Yeah. It was just, loose ends he had to tie up. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you had no indicator on when he was coming back, or did you assume like, oh, he'll be gone like a week, or like, what did you think?
I thought he would be gone for a week or something, because he would do business trips to like Kalgoorlie or Albany, like so normal. That's like 4-hour drive, like 6-hour drives, right? So I was like, oh yeah. So I thought it would be like a week. Like I was like, okay, no worries. He's like, I'll be back as soon as I can. And I was like, okay. And he wasn't. And then this is where everything starts to unravel. So people would come to the apartment looking for him. There was people coming in, like he had a friend come in while I was out of the apartment to take all his stuff, like he wasn't even there.
So bizarre. So like were you guys even communicating much during that time? And you're just having this, so you're suddenly losing communication. You're having this guy turn up trying to collect his stuff. like, where was your head at? Were you just like, is he leaving me? Like, what's happening? Like, I would be so confused.
Yeah, very distraught. So a lot of my suppressed emotions came out now because I was like, you're basically having a safety blanket ripped from under you, and you're just like, holy shit, like the life I came into thinking is not the life anymore.
Yes.
Because I have no idea like where my husband is, right? And so, and he was, it was barely communication. So like we would email, and if that, it was really loosely. There was no texting. He blocked my number, so I couldn't call
So
him.
weird. And that was just out of the
Yeah,
blue. Like, he didn't say anything. It was just like, you just couldn't get a hold of him one day.
no, just, yeah.
So weird.
And so when I said the communication's loose, it was like, okay, you need to get out the apartment because I'm going to have someone come and take my stuff. Like I wasn't there. You don't need to worry. Like everything's going to be fine. I need to rid your life from me. And I was like, what the fuck? And I just knew it was bad shit, obviously. I was like, okay, like I have no idea how this is going to go. Am I going to get bashed? I'm a new mom, I have a newborn, like you get very protective. And,
Yeah.
this is the time where some people even get postnatal depression. So
Of
I'm very blessed
course.
I never got that. Yeah. And so I was heavily medicated anyway because I had a C-section. And so you're still trying to recover and everything like that. And you just have people coming to the apartment, like buzzing me, like, is he there? And you're just like, no. And then, yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. All good. Everyone's overlooking at my face, honestly.
Oh my God, pressing buttons that I'm not meant to be pressing. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
I was just thinking though, so as you're going through all of this, like, were you thinking like, is he going to leave me? Or were you thinking more like, he's trying to hide some shit, or like something's going down and he's trying to like protect me from it? Like, where was your head leaning?
It was more to the point of like, I actually have no idea what's going on. Like, this is not a normal situation that happens.
No, not at all.
And yeah, so I was very blessed. I had two friends, or I had my friends around, but I mainly had like two friends or three friends that were really like there, like constantly. So one of my friends, she had already had her kids prior. Unfortunately, we're not friends now, but this is why people come into your life for a reason, season, lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And she was obviously for the season, and she was really helping me with motherhood. I was struggling breastfeeding. It was like a full-on thing. So she was really helping me. And she was like, it's going to be okay. And she was like my rock, because I really needed that. She would stay with me. It was like, I had that support. And then, because obviously the detriment that she could, but she did like help me. And then I had another friend that I ended up staying at her house because I had no idea what was going on. She's like, no, come stay with me. I want you to be with me. And so I was like, okay, cool. So I literally packed me and Scarlett up and we'd go stay with her for a night or two. And that was really good. And then I had some friends come in when I needed to like have a shower and stuff like that. But so I wasn't completely alone, but most of the time, yeah, I was really solidly alone. And I had a lot of anxiety of going, I don't know if I'm going to make it through the night because there's so much shit happening. Because yeah, people were coming into the apartment. I had to get out. People were coming to look for him. It was like a really big thing. He wasn't answering the phone. When he would call me, it was obviously in certain times. He's like, oh, it's just this court case, blah, blah, blah. He would send me emails of the court case, but it didn't answer any of my questions. So this is where a lot of mind games come into it, when you're in a toxic situation where people talk in circles. So I was trying so hard to go, what is going on? And I knew in my heart that I was like, he must have a different life. Like there's a double life happening here. That's what I was thinking. I was like, there's a double life. I don't know what's going on because nothing else measures up. And because he's a lot older, I knew there was something like that. I'm like, he's obviously ashamed about something and he doesn't want to tell me. Okay, fine. And then I would go digging because a woman can always be a detective if she needs to be.
Oh, yep.
And so I went digging. Yeah, we can all relate, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I went digging. Yeah. So I went digging with my friend who was the rock that would help me with breastfeeding and stuff like that because her husband was with her kids. So she would come and stay like a few nights here and there to really help me.
Bless her.
Honestly, it's like I'm so grateful for her. And we were trying to look. She's like, honestly, courts are like in the public system. You would be able to have a look at what it is. And I couldn't find it anywhere. Couldn't find the court case at all. Couldn't find anything to do with it. Like I was looking it up what it was. So he fabricated an email I don't know this for sure, but it seems like he's fabricated this email to say that he's had this court case because I couldn't find anywhere in the database of Australia courts. No, it's not there.
So weird.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. But he did have a lot of paperwork from it, so it probably was. It's just privately. I don't know. But, yeah, it was not a standard court scenario. Yeah.
That's so interesting and so like hectic for you, like as a new first-time mum. Far out. So you had to get out of that apartment. Where did you go after that? Did he come back? What happened next?
So then after that, so that was going on, and I just had the mindset of like, well, it's just me and my daughter, and it's one foot in front of the other. And I was like, I can only control what I control here. I don't know what's going on. And I didn't even care. Like at this point, you saw, because I was so numbed out and suppressed from everything, before with my dad, I just felt very emotionally fatigued, and I just didn't feel the need to want to dig up anymore because it wasn't doing anything, right? So I was just like, whatever. So then all of a sudden he then messages me, like emails me and goes, hey, you need to get out the apartment in 2 weeks because the owners are selling. And we all know that doesn't happen that quickly, but I was like, holy shit. So I had to then pack up me and Scarlett in this apartment. And to get out of there. Now, I wasn't on speaking terms with my mum because obviously everything happening in family drama, and she was suppressing her, like she was dealing with her own emotions. So then I ended up staying with my friend's parents. She I could have stayed with her, but she was really further south, and I wanted to look for, places to rent and stuff like that. So it just wasn't feasible because I didn't have a car at that point. Because when I ended my 6-year relationship, I sold my car and sold everything because I didn't need it. And anyways, like a whole thing. Because we had a joint car, me and the sperm donor, but then that got taken. So
right.
Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had to really rally. And so I stayed with them for a whole month. It was like just over a month. And I'm so grateful for them because they didn't even know who I was. They're just like, yeah, she can come stay with us. No worries. Newborn,
so
that's
kind.
fine. Yeah, honestly.
Such
and by this
newborn,
point,
my God.
Yeah, Scarlett was 3 months by this point, so she was coming on into an infant. So it wasn't complete newborn phase anymore. It was she was 3 months. So, and then so stayed with them. So grateful because again that was such a crazy time, just with motherhood in general, like lack of sleep and stuff. Yeah, and then I ended up finding a house up north, like in Alkimos Way, which was it honestly happened in divine timing because as much as I had the money to buy, like to rent a house and stuff like that, because I had sold my house by this point, and then I sold my dad's house, and so I had like equity and stuff, right? So then I was like, yep, I can definitely fit the rent. Like I'm a single mom, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, so she was like, I'm happy to have you, Tahlia, but like you need to have your husband on the lease. And I was like, okay, great. Because I knew contact was minimal. So I was emailing so hard, trying to be like, just sending so many emails a day, being like, you need to freaking fill out the paperwork, blah, blah.
How stressful.
And then he would then, honestly, it doesn't get worse, but it just gets intense, where he would then scream at me. He'd be like, how dare you? Like he would type in capital letters and be like, how dare you bug me while I'm trying to sort out business so I can come home to you and our daughter. It was like full
it's like,
on.
sorry, I'm asking for you to help us like put a fucking roof over me and your child's head. Like fucking fuck off.
Yeah, literally. I was like, the audacity here. I was just like, what the fuck? So I was starting to hate him at this point because it was just so much. Like, you're just like, what the fuck? Yeah, so that was all happening. Anyway, managed to wrangle it. So we ended up getting into this rental. The landlord was so lovely. Again, all divine timing. I managed to get a car, so I bought a car outright. Like it all just started to happen. Okay, so this is like my whole thing. So then when he came back in June, I really made him work for it to the best that I could, where I was so cold. I was just like, how dare you come back? Because he just randomly came back. So he ended up going on the lease. I ended up moving in, and me and Scarlett were in that house for probably about a week. And then had all furniture. I bought all furniture. So I literally bought us a whole fresh start, basically. Like, paid the lease in full. It was like full on, didn't have to worry about it, just paid the bills kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So set us up. It was great. Felt very empowered doing that. And then he came back because obviously he was on the lease, so he knew where we lived. So he just randomly showed up. I had no idea he was coming. And he made it like, oh, it was a surprise for you because I didn't want you to know that I'm coming. And I was like, okay.
Cute.
And then, yeah, I bet it was a surprise.
What other surprises have you got up there?
Honestly. And then so yeah, I ended up coming back, and then I wasn't even happy. I was kind of like, what the hell? Like I didn't know how to feel.
Pissed. I'd be so mad.
Yeah, it was wild. And so I was just kind of like, okay. And then so what I mean by I made him work for it, like I was just really cold. I was like, he didn't even say sorry. And I was like, how dare you come back and you don't even say sorry to me? You've left me in the lurch for so long. You barely talked to me. You blocked my number. I tried to find out, like, it was a whole lot because I've had to try and be an investigator. It was so much that I was like, how dare you? Like, just come back thinking everything's fine. And he was like, I am sorry. Like, what do you want me to say? Like, what's done is done. And so, like, yeah. So, again, he talked in circles. Yeah.
Oh, my God. Okay. All right. So, where are we now? We're June 2021?
June 21. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Fucking hell. That would... Honestly, I would be so livid. So livid. Oh, my God. So he came back... And then what happened next? Like, you've got your doubts now. You're wondering if there's this, like, double life going on. Like, people were showing up. Like, did you confront him about that stuff as well? Were you like, Joe and fucking John showed up at, like, 5 a.m. the other day. Like, what is this about? Tell me about this court case. Like, what did you do?
Yeah, I was asking him about the court case. I was like, so what is all this? Like, what's the deal? And he was like, honestly, it's just loose ends. He just says, it's nothing that I want you to worry about because it's my shit. It's just my past catching up with me. And I would never understand that phrase. I was like, what do you mean your past catching up with you? And he would always say that. That was his answer to everything. He would dance that's what I mean, he's talking around in circles. So by the time you're trying to ask a question, he's dancing around it, being all like, my past is just coming back to me, I'm here now, like, and then he would start to love bomb me again and just be like, I'm here now, I'm here for good, blah, blah, blah. And then by that point, I had just been so emotionally exhausted that I was just like, you know what, like, I'm just, whatever. I don't care to fucking know. You're here now. And I'm like, do you have to go back again? And he said no. And I was like, okay. So I just left it because I was that exhausted by it. I was just like, you know what, I don't even care. Like, you just don't even want to know at that point because you're back now, so it's like, well, let's try and move forward then. Yeah.
How did the relationship go going forward? Was there any other secret surprises or anything else he had up his sleeve that came to the surface? Tell us the goss.
Yes, there was. Of course there was more. So obviously, yeah, so I just left her that, whatever, try and move forward. Then the next month I find out I'm pregnant with Nevaeh, which is my second daughter. Yeah. At that time I was like, holy shit, I'm pregnant. Like, it's not that I wasn't happy because we always talked about more children. It was just more like, holy shit, like right away. So the girls are 14 months apart.
Oh my God. Wow.
And so I was like, okay. So I tell him that, and then all of a sudden, I think it was like a week later, after finding out I'm pregnant again, his ex-wife messages me on Facebook. And yeah, here we go. So she messages me this long message because as much as, like, I totally get that women can be crazy as well, like 100%, like, you're human, it's women and men, it's not just men, it's like everyone, right? So a lot of the time men want to go, oh, she's just crazy. Like, I have a crazy ex. And it's like, said no man ever, really. And so I felt like, okay. And she listed a lot of things. And a lot of the things that she listed did not happen to me, which I'm very thankful about because he was quite abusive with her physically. And so I actually hadn't, like, received any of that, luckily. And so I was like, holy shit. And reading it was very intense because she was explaining her life. He had a child with her. They were married. He
oh my God.
Yeah, this is when it all came out where, like, he had an affair and everything. It was, like, so full on.
Did you even know that he'd been married before, or was this, like, all brand new news to you? Didn't know about the kid. Yeah, wow.
No. Yeah, so he told me that he didn't have any kids or anything like that. He told me that he wasn't married before. He'd never
So
been
straight
married. It
out
was like
lied. Wow.
yeah. So full on. So now I'm just like, okay, cool, being met with this. So then after like having experienced what I experienced, I then started to become a little bit more savvy. And so I rang my friend, the one that, because moving up north, like into Alchemist Ways, I was around the corner from a lot of my friends and closer to my friends and family because a lot of us live north the river. And so I was surrounded a bit more by people that, around. So the friend that came with me and she was helping me with breastfeeding and stuff, I called her and put her on mute. And I went to the toilet and I said to her, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to call you and put you on mute. And I just want you to hear because I'm about to bring up past. And I don't know if he's going to then become like aggressive, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so we're on the couch and I call her and put it next to me on mute. And I ask him, I'm like, well, actually, I've got this message. And I explained to him and everything and read it out. And he goes, and he's laughing. He starts to laugh and go, oh, she's just crazy. And I was like, okay, yeah. And I didn't get much out from him other than that. He said his own little story. He's like, it ended honestly really good, but no, we don't have a child and she cheated or whatever. Like he made up his own way with it. Can't remember everything he said, obviously. But yeah. And so I was just like, well, I don't even know what to do here. Like I've chosen to move forward. I'm pregnant with your second child. I don't know what to do. Like I'm stuck now because I paid a year out in this lease. So I was just, this is the moment I felt really stuck. I was like, holy shit. So I was like, okay. And so I just ignored it, took it for that she was crazy. And then our relationship was, got better because love bombing and everything like that. I stayed silent. Again, I was still like the people pleaser, not the person I am today. And so I just kind of went along. And then I ended up, so in September 21, I got introduced to the online space and network marketing and everything like that. And so that's when I started to become online. And I started my self-development journey because I was in group coaching. And then, our relationship was still so good. Yep, everything was great. And then all of a sudden he couldn't get a job anywhere and he was going to work for himself. He just decided to start this whole new business, like doing people's lawns or whatever. And I was like, okay, no worries. And so he did that. And this is when things started to take a turn because then he decided to stay away and not be here in the house with us anymore. Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. Whereabouts are we now? Are we in 2021? Yeah.
So end of 21. Yeah.
End of 2021. And how far along are you in your pregnancy at this point?
Like coming into third trimester.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
so he started this new business. You guys are still living together. So what happened next? Did you still have that inkling as well about, maybe something more is happening, or did you just go, let's let bygones be bygones, like I'm not going to think about it anymore. Where were you at and what happened after that?
Yeah, so I knew there was more to the story because I don't believe that. So, I believe that, yes, you can have crazy exes 100%, but when they go into detail of a life that you've lived with them and they really tell you about stuff, that's when you know that there's some sort of truth to it. And so,
because what would she have gained in reaching out to you anyway? Like, she was obviously just trying to warn you in a sense.
Exactly.
Yeah, so she had nothing to gain.
Exactly. And he's not from Perth. So she was in Sydney.
Right, yeah.
Just wanted a bit of silence there to go, everybody might drop their hair. Yeah, she's in Sydney. So, what does she have to gain to reach out to me? And because the only reason why she reached out to me is because, I was friends with him on Facebook, but he never would put us as in like married to.
Oh my God.
Never did that. Yeah.
Just more red flags.
Yeah, again, I was just missing them.
I mean, but you got a lot of your own stuff going on, so it's all right.
I know, of course. Of course. Like, again, this is all in hindsight, right? Like, when you're in it, you're clouded by so much emotion, and I was so numbed out. Yeah. So yeah, so she actually, what did she have to gain? Because it was a lot, and I was like, holy shit. So I knew it was true, but I just didn't know where it was going to fit in. So at this point now, yeah, I just kind of was like, okay, well, I don't know anymore, so I'm just going to leave it and focus on I've got a toddler, and now I'm having another baby. And so he was, he did his own business about like his landscaping business, and now what happened is that he couldn't actually be a dad. So he couldn't go to work and come home. He was like, no, I'm just getting so stressed coming back home to a house like to you and Scarlett. And I really, like, no offense, like, even though I am a lot better today, but like even then I wasn't a horrible person to come home to.
No.
Like, I will say that, not to, be up myself or anything, but that's like honesty.
No.
And so I was like, what do you mean?
God.
Like, you don't get to have a break from being a dad.
Yeah, so he obviously was just finding everything really hard. And so is this when he kind of started just disappearing?
Yeah. So he would then he was like, we need to do a fight for a relationship where
oh my fucking God.
yeah,
a fight for a relationship
where I know, like, where I'll just go stay at a room for rent, and then and then I can just go to work, come see you and Scarlett, and then I'll just sleep there.
Oh my God.
And it took me a lot to really like let him do that by all means. So I didn't just go, oh yeah, that's great. Like, obviously I was really like, come on now, like what are you talking about? And so it took me a lot to get used to. So this was like a month's conversation. He ended up doing it because I just was like, well, I'm going in circles with you yet again. So I was like, you know what, just whatever. Like at this point I was kind of like, I just don't even know anymore. And so I just was like, you know what, I don't even care, like whatever. And so he then ended up doing that, got a room for rent somewhere. Now, in hindsight, also, this is where he had an affair. So he actually had someone else who also had children to somebody else. So that's ironic. So he went and stayed with her and was building a life with her. So he came to me and then went with her right behind my back. This is what was happening. But obviously at the time, I had no idea this was happening. I had a hunch because I was like, well, that makes sense. He's obviously going to be cheating, but I actually don't know for sure, right?
Yeah. So how did you find out? Like, how did this all kind of unravel for you?
His ex-wife. So when he had gone, like when he decided to do this whole room thing, he wasn't home at like weeks at a time. So he would be gone for 2 weeks, be back for a week, he'd be gone again, back, and it was just like that. So I knew something was happening. Okay, let's fast forward now. So we're in March 22. That's when I have Nevaeh. So I had my second baby. It was still like the room thing of like here for a week, gone for 3, back for 2, gone for 4. Like it was literally like that. Oh, like God. That's the time frame, right? Just to lock it in there. Okay. So I have Nevi, and I had her, like, he was present for the birth, and then he got really uptight that he had to look after Scarlett at home. So what happened was I know. So I had Nevi. Our friend was looking after Scarlett for the first night when I had her, so he could do like, skin on skin and everything, like, connect. So we had the first night, and then he tried to stay a second night at the hospital. But we went with the same hospital, so that was like down south. So it was close to our friend's house. So she was like, she's not going to settle, like you're going to have to come and get her. So he was like, okay. So he went and got her, took her back home. And then he was just like, the whole time I was in hospital, because in hospital for about 5 days, there was a few complications with Nevi for me. Like they weren't sure if they got all everything out and stuff like that. Anyway, so I had to stay in for a little bit. And plus there was still, like, COVID was still a thing in hospitals in 22. So there was still restrictions and things like that. So yeah, he was just getting annoyed. He was like, when are you coming home? And I was like, the fuck? And so I was like, what the hell? You have to look after your child. Boo freaking who? Like, she's your own child. And so I literally felt like that. I was like, you know what, whatever. So he ended up looking after for the whole 5 days and stuff. And we're home and everything like that. And then he went back to his like life of doing whatever. And I was just at home with 2 children, like, doing it on my own. And by that point, I was just so used to it. I just was like, hey, this is my life. I don't really care anymore. Like, this is where I checked out of the relationship anyway. I was still worrying and like going, what the hell's going on? And wishing he was around, but it wasn't happening. So I was just like, okay, well, I have to do what I have to do. And so we'll then fast forward to September. So again, it was still here and there. And then people started to knock on the door in our Akamos house. So people started to come to the door and go looking for him. And I said, no. And again, he just said, this is the recurring thing. My past is catching up to me. In this time, so back in July 21, I put money in an account for the girls and he drained the account.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah, so I didn't know that at the time. So September 22, he decides to shoot me an email saying that he's done, like blaming its mental health and everything like that. And I was away at a friend's house for the day because she lived down south and I lived way up north. So we would make it a whole day trip. And while I was there, I came home and I checked my emails and I got this email and because I came home to all his stuff gone. It was only his stuff that was touched and it was all completely gone. I was like, oh my gosh, like what the hell?
How weird.
And then I read the email. Yeah, I read the email and then I was kind of like, holy shit. And then I was like, I actually felt relief. Like I was like, oh my God, I'm actually not in this roller coaster anymore.
So the email, was that essentially him being like, I'm fucking out, like, sorry, can't do this? Is that what it was? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just like, I can't, it's better for you if I'm not in your life anymore. I have a lot of mental health. I just can't provide. Yeah. But yeah, like it was a lot of truth. And like part of me is like, he's still a human. So he very much was having mental health because trying to live double lives.
He's not well. He's not well.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, so that's still like it is mental health, but just not in the sense that he was trying to describe and portray. Right.
Yeah.
And so I did feel relief because I'm not on the roller coaster anymore. And then, so I then go and check the account because that was just a gut instinct in me. So I went and go check the account. It was drained and the bank said to me, oh, it was drained like when you put the money in there. It looked like it just got taken out straight away. And I was like, holy shit.
And how much was that?
70 grand.
70 grand. Oh my God. Walking dead man. Are you serious?
Yeah. I know I smile and stuff. It's just because like I can only laugh about the situation now because it's like, yeah, that's massive, right? Like, yeah, that was their future. It was for schooling and everything. Yeah. Completely gone. I can't get that back because he touched it right away, which obviously he knows this. He touched it right away. If he had touched it when he left me, different story. Yeah. But because I was still with him, they were like, we don't know if he like was paying for things and using that money. They're like, we just can't really, because if he recycled that money to you, technically it's yours still. So they had like, there's no leg to stand on about getting
bullshit
that money back.
Though. Hey, oh my God, yeah. That's so unfair.
Yeah, so I know because a lot of my friends are like, you sure can take to court and like, and my thing is like, yes, I can take him to court, but like how much money would I have to outlay to go to court, and he could literally, because people can just not show up to court and so that bills you. And so he can just keep doing that for years. And I don't want to waste my life like that. I'm still young and I'm just like, I'd rather live my life with my kids and rebuild rather than trying to chase money that I probably won't ever get back.
Yeah.
Or not even the whole of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where my mindset was into it. And then I reached out to his ex-wife and then that's when I found out about he was actually having an affair with another person because she told me, because she was still, I don't really know how this all goes. I feel like she still stalks him from time to time, but she knew people that they were mutually friends with and she found out that he got married.
Wait, again?
To her. Yeah, so he got married.
This girl that he's having an affair with, he's now married someone else after you.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay.
I know, it just gets better and better.
Please
everybody told you to buckle up.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah, so back in 2020 when we eloped, when we got married in Broome, we got married. And then he was actually, when we got married in 2020, he was still married to his ex-wife that hadn't finalized the divorce, okay? And then he marries this new chick in November 22. And I was like, what the hell? What does that mean for me?
So he's sporting three marriages.
Yeah. So I was like, what the hell? So I went to Birth, Deaths and Marriages and explained. And they were like, holy shit. And I was the third person that flagged this.
Oh, shit.
And I was like, oh, my God. Yeah. So then they were like, okay, yeah. And then I was like, so they flagged the marriage, and then they had to do a lot of investigation. The AFP came into it. I went to every like police station around me. They all laughed at me except for Yanship. So props to
Good
Yanship.
on Yanship.
Yeah, honestly. They took me on and was like, we've never heard anything like this, but we'll take your statement. AFP got onto that. So then the AFP came to my door, and then I had to do a statement for them. They went into investigation and everything like that. He went on to it was like all over the news and everything. And what happened was they found out that my marriage wasn't actually marriage. So I didn't actually get married. I was the loophole because he was already married previously, because he didn't get the divorce finalized by his ex-wife until 2021.
Right.
So we were married for over a year technically, because we got married July 2020 and then it was September 21 his divorce got finalized.
Right. So
But
you were
then
just
the
in
new
this grey
chick,
area where, yeah, yours wasn't going to be recognized.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so the new chick, poor thing, she actually got married to him because he was ridded from her, and then mine didn't count. So God knows what's happened now. But yeah, he was on the news and everything. And yeah, I didn't go to court, luckily. It was completely the AFP and him,
Oh, that's
because they
good.
didn't want to let, yeah, because I didn't want to let them know that kids are involved, because once that they know that, court doesn't care about anything else except for the kids and what they deem is right, which is I agree with, is that no matter what, obviously I feel like circumstantial too, but a child should have both their parents, and I fully agree with that if that can happen, but obviously circumstantial, because yeah, I don't want him in their life because don't know
Yeah.
who he is.
Oh, absolutely. So since all of this kind of unraveled and, seeing this on the news, like what was your like reaction? Like how were you feeling? Did you tell your friends and family what happened? Like how did they react? What was your response to all of it?
Yeah, so I was very open about it when everything was starting to unravel. I started to be a little bit more open on what was going on. I didn't really tell anyone what was happening in the relationship while I was in it, like with having my girls and everything like that. Everyone knew, but not quite. And then until like when he left and everything unraveled, that's when I told everybody, and everyone was just so gobsmacked. A lot of my friends were very, how could you just keep that from me? Like, I wish I was there for you. And I just didn't let anyone be there for me because I didn't even know, like it was a lot. And I guess I felt shame and guilt for a lot of things as well, which
Yeah.
is like so normal. And yeah, just everyone was just kind of like, oh my God. And they just felt for me. And because there was a lot of hate comments. So when obviously anywhere online, you go on the news and everything like that. And a lot of people were just like, oh my God, why would you want to be married to 3 women? I can barely be married to one. And like all those shitty comments. And I was like, oh my God. And he's like, yeah, it's just, and then other people from the other, like outside of the world were like, this is normal in this like country, because Australia is the only, like pretty much one of the only countries that deem bigamy as a law.
Yeah.
Everywhere else in the world, it's okay to have like 1 billion wives. So yeah, that's why it blew up in Australia, and 7 News and 9 News and everyone got onto it, because it was like, holy shit, this doesn't happen, which it actually does. But a lot of people won't be forward about it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Far out.
because I saw someone, she posted a similar story. They weren't married though, but he had a wife and she was the other woman and she didn't know, and they were together for 5 years.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine
Yeah.
being in that position. I can't even imagine being in your position. Like, oh my God, it's just, wow. Honestly, it's like so much. Like, if it could be a movie, I think you've hit like, all those those key elements that really, make it a good one.
Blockbuster.
Yeah, you built the hype, like, it was just and the ending. Oh my goodness. So after all this kind of came to light, like, did you confront him about these other marriages? Was there any of that? Or were you kind of like, nah, I'm just done with this guy. I just want to move on. Like, he's already exited out of my life. Like, that's all I need.
Yeah, I just was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want him around at all. I didn't know who he was either. So it was like a big thing like that where it was all such a lie, and everything was so fabricated that I didn't know who the person was. So I don't want him around the girls at all, because I don't normally, like with an ex, you kind of know at least who they are. I had no idea who he was. So yeah.
Yeah. And so did you ever end up finding out like what the court case was about or anything else about his life? No. Okay.
Nah, it was just the court case ended up being the affair that he had with his ex-wife. She was like quite a wealthy woman that he actually stole money from her, and so she was suing him to get her money back. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So his past was catching up with him there.
Yeah, at least it was honest. He kept saying that, right?
Fucking hell. Oh my God. Okay. Well, now that we've gone through that whole story, tell us where you are today, what you're really focusing on. Talk to us a little bit about, even the personal development journey that you've been on. I mean, you mentioned, this was you then before, and this is you now, and you're quite different. You're quite a different person. So yes, please tell us.
Okay. Now, yeah, so now since everything happening, and like I said, everything happens for a reason. So with my dad passing and then all this happening as well, in the midst of everything, I was introduced to online space and into group coaching and everything like that. So I started working on myself whilst in that relationship. And I really believe that really helped me a lot to get a lot more self-awareness on things and really understand how our emotions can really play out. Sometimes we can really make our emotions a lot more bigger than a situation, just in a generalized sense, obviously not in certain situations, but yeah. And so I really understood to like how people think, what makes us tick, really finding out a lot about me and things like that. So I was so introduced to that, and I was like, oh wow, there is like this whole world of self-development. Like we all know it, like affirmations and meditation, but we don't actually understand why that would actually benefit us and things like that. So I really then, with this experience, pushed a lot of my time and effort into discovering self-development, and I wanted to really speak on it in a way that people can understand, because I really feel like as well in the industry a lot of people can make it be this taboo thing, or you have to buy a certain program before they will tell you what actually you're meant to be doing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I'm all for you do definitely need a coach, or you might need a therapist. 100%. If you want to work on yourself, you would need to invest in people one-on-one, especially to heal big T traumas as such. Like for me to be who I am today, I work with a coach, and I really actually worked on myself one-on-one with her, and I did somatic exercises to get a lot of the trauma out of my body, not just like for my mind, but just for your body, because our nervous system is such a big thing. So to help with nervous system regulation, and that impacts our life massively. So I've really actually become so big on wanting to, that's why I started my podcast as well this year, on explaining that and explaining my story. Yeah, thank you. And so being online, like I've been in network marketing. So I'm in 2 network marketing companies at the moment. One I haven't really like talked about because my products haven't come back, and I'm all for like really talking about the products when I've like used it myself.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because there's so much out there online now. And so one of the companies is like a hair care company and a beauty brand, and they're very global and everything like that. And I absolutely love them, and the community is amazing. And that's why I joined, because you join network marketing generally because of community. And because I was really passionate about self-development and working with a coach and everything like that, she was like, let's work on your personal branding. And I said, yeah, I would love to have a podcast. That would be the dream. But I'm not anyone fancy. And she was like, what are you talking about? You definitely can have your own podcast. So that's when Becoming Invincible podcast got birthed and everything like that. So that was really exciting, and really getting myself out there as like a brand. And so I really label myself as a motivational speaker or a mindset mentor. Like I really wanted to be sort of like a coach in that, but I really feel like speaking is my domain, and I can go really more deeper in mindset and everything like that for everyone to have a bit more awareness on themselves.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And, congrats on the new journey that you're on. I mean, it sounds like it's been an absolute roller coaster for you, but I'm just so proud of you. I mean, look at where you are now
Oh,
after
thanks.
going through this fucking shitstorm. Oh my God. Like, I couldn't even imagine.
Literally.
Can't even imagine. So, yeah, good on you, man. Like, well done.
Oh, thank you.
No
I feel
worries.
very blushed, like, oh.
Take the compliment. Take the compliment.
Yeah.
Take it. Well done. So I guess what are your aspirations like for the future? Like you've said that you really identify as a motivational speaker. So like, are you wanting to talk at like events? Are you wanting to hold workshops? What are you planning on doing?
Ooh, good question. Yeah, so my vision is to hold workshops for people as well. So with my podcast, I want to grow a community, and obviously, like yourself, you would definitely understand that because business is very much heart led, no matter what you do. And I feel like, especially being online, people still don't understand it, and it's a lot of heart and it's a lot of effort and work, right?
Yeah.
And so I really want to build a community with my podcast. I would love to, speak at schools or go to events and speak at events and everything like that as well, because I feel like as well with teenagers and things like that, because that's also what filters into my journey, where we used to have motivational speakers come to our school.
We
I
did.
actually used
Yep.
to love it. And I actually used to love it because I'm like, oh my God, someone that doesn't have an arm or legs or whatever are still doing impactful work in their life. And I actually found that really empowering, but I wasn't that type of person to take it on then.
Yeah,
And then
same.
obviously so, now when we've had pivotal moments in our lives, and then it's funny how sometimes the journey can be full circle or come back around in some way. And I feel like that's how it's happened for me in speaking, is because it's kind of ironic. Like, I actually have a little bit of a lisp and things like that. And I've really struggled with my speech in general, that it's ironic that someone would like me would want to have a podcast and things like that. That's so, for me to speak, there's a lot I have to really make sure I'm speaking clearly and a lot of things like that. So it's interesting. And so, for the future, I really love to, speak at events and go to schools or whatever and really help build people's mindset and awareness a lot more and actually break things down a lot more easier, and even talk about communication, because the art of communication gets so lost and a lot of people don't really understand that what really communication is all about. So I'd really love for everyone to sort of be a little bit more educated in how it can help people in all aspects of their life, relationships and work and their friends and family and everything, just how communication impacts everyone in their life in general. So that's pretty much where it is at the moment, just building a community at the moment, because I've only really launched this year in my podcast. I just really wanted to find my feet, build the trust and the like and the know and the community to then be able to do like workshops and events and speak at them and everything like that. So
Oh, well, that's all very exciting, and I can't wait to watch you to continue blossoming. I mean, I just feel so grateful that we've even been able to reconnect, and that's because you started showing up online. Like that's how we started to connect. And I remember when you first told me your story, I was like, like just gob
like, what the hell?
smacked. Yeah, I had no idea that you've been going through all that. And I'm just really grateful for the connection, grateful for you showing up the way that you are, and I can't wait to see what you do next.
Oh, thank you so much. I feel so honored. Like, I'm like, oh, you believe in me now?
I do.
Like, fangirl.
I do. So to wrap it up, if there's one message you'd like to leave with our listeners, what would it be?
What's helped me is, I actually will leave that whole grief thing is like, you can't control things that happen in your life, and you'll never get over a situation, but you'll just learn to live with it. And it can also, obviously, when you lose someone, you'll learn to live without them. And so whatever may happen in your life, just know the best is yet to come. Because honestly, if you ever thought that where I'd be today 2 years ago or even a year ago, I would have actually laughed and been like, no way. 2 years ago, I would have been like, really? Like, how is that meant to happen to me? So we can sometimes be in this moment of time and be like, oh, yeah, in a year's time, you don't know where you'd be. And you think, oh, yeah, whatever, like a year seems so short, when it's actually like so much can happen for you and your growth and your journey. And so I really want everyone to understand that where you are right now, you're going to be in a completely different place a year from now, maybe even 2 years from now. And you won't even believe that's where you would be, whether that's yourself, your situation, whatever comes into your life, just anything. And I think that's where everyone needs to sort of understand and remind themselves that you don't need to go searching for validation and things. It's all within you.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much. Oh, well, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad we've connected, and I'll be chatting with you soon, I'm sure.
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate you so, so much.
Oh, I appreciate you too. All right, well, thanks for coming on, and speak soon.
Bye.
Bye.